A quiet morning inside a community center that sits in the middle of a busy neighborhood. People come here every day for different reasons. Some come to attend classes, some to practice music, some to meet friends, and some just to spend a bit of time away from the noise of the outside world. Among all these people, there is one person almost everyone sees but never really notices, the janitor. He works early mornings and late evenings, cleaning floors, arranging chairs, fixing small things, and making sure the place looks ready for the next group of visitors. Most people greet him with a small nod or a quick smile, but no one ever stops to talk to him for long. He is just someone who quietly does his work and doesn't draw attention on this particular day. The hall of the community center is louder than usual. A music group is practicing for a small event. They have an old upright piano placed near the stage. The piano has been in the center for years, used by children, adults, and visitors from everywhere. Some days it sounds fine, and some days it creaks or makes strange notes. The group practicing today is a mix of people. Some play instruments, some just enjoy being around music. Among them is a man who often speaks a bit louder than he needs to. He is the type who likes being noticed, and he enjoys making jokes that he finds funny, even if they make others uncomfortable. As the group tries to play a simple tune together, the piano suddenly makes a sound that is slightly off-key. The man instantly stops playing his guitar and throws his hands in the air. He complains loudly that the piano is not tuned properly, and says the whole practice will be useless if the sound keeps messing up the rhythm. Some people roll their eyes quietly, but no one says anything. They are used to his dramatic reactions. The janitor happens to be walking past the hall, carrying a bucket and a mop. The man sees him and, in his usual joking tone, says something like, "Hey, maybe the janitor can fix the piano. Who knows, maybe he's a music expert." He says it loudly enough for everyone in the hall to hear, and a few people laugh, not because the joke is good, but because they don't want to make the man upset. The janitor doesn't react much. He simply gives a small smile, the kind of smile people give when they are used to hearing things like this. He continues walking, heading toward the other side of the hall where he needs to clean. But the man doesn't stop. He continues speaking loudly and says, "Actually, if he can play even one tune, I will believe he knows something about music." He laughs again, clearly expecting the janitor to ignore him or maybe get embarrassed. Everyone else looks away, pretending they're busy. They don't want to be part of the conversation. The janitor pauses for a moment, as if deciding whether he should respond or just keep doing his job. He has always been polite, calm, and respectful. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't argue with anyone. He prefers to let people say whatever they want and continue doing his work quietly. He gently turns toward the group and says in a soft voice, "I don't know about tuning, but if the piano needs cleaning, I can check it later." His voice is calm and humble. The man, still amused, shakes his head and replies, No, not cleaning. I asked if you can play. You look like someone who never touched a piano." He laughs again. Some of the group members feel uncomfortable because they can see the comment is unnecessary, but they also know the janitor rarely gets upset. The janitor doesn't seem hurt. Instead, he continues with his tasks, wiping the nearby tables. But something in his eyes hints at a memory he usually keeps to himself. He glances at the piano for a second longer than usual. It is a look that suggests that the piano means something more to him than what people think. But he doesn't say anything about it. The practice continues for a few minutes, but the man keeps complaining every time the piano sounds even slightly off. He seems more focused on showing his frustration than actually practicing music. At this point, the janitor finishes cleaning the tables and walks toward the storage room, but his path takes him right past the piano. He walks slowly, not wanting to interrupt the group, yet his steps show he is thinking about something. Maybe he's thinking about the comment made earlier. Or maybe the sound of the piano brought back a piece of his past. As he passes by, the man suddenly taps the top of the piano and calls out again, "You sure you don't want to try? If you can play even a little, I'll believe you." This time the tone is lighter, but still teasing. The janitor stops. The hall falls a little quiet, curious about what he might say. The janitor looks at the piano again, then at the man, and gives a small smile, one that hides a lot more than it shows, before he can speak. Someone from the group says gently, "Let him do his work. He doesn't need to prove anything." But the man keeps insisting, almost enjoying the attention. The janitor simply nods and says, "Maybe another time." Then he continues walking, leaving the group unsure whether he was avoiding the challenge or just being modest. The moment is small, but it leaves the room with a strange feeling. Some people whisper quietly, wondering whether the janitor actually knows how to play. Others think the man was just being rude, but the janitor doesn't let any of the comments affect his work. He goes on with his routine, cleaning corners, adjusting chairs, and making sure everything looks neat. A little later, when the practice ends and most people leave the hall, the man still seems annoyed. He complains again about how difficult it is to practice when the piano isn't perfect. He looks around and notices the janitor cleaning a nearby shelf. With a half smile, he says again, "Seriously though, if you can play even one song, I'll say you're better than me." The tone is lighter this time, almost as if he is trying to make the moment funny. The janitor wipes his hands on his cloth and looks at the piano once more. He doesn't agree or disagree, but something in his calm expression makes the man pause. It is as if the janitor knows something the man doesn't, something hidden, something that might surprise everyone in the hall. But for now he stays silent. He returns to his work as if nothing happened, but the piano stays in his mind. The day continues normally. People walk in and out, the janitor moves quietly from one corner to another, and the man eventually packs his guitar and leaves the hall. But the small moment hangs in the air like a quiet note waiting to be played. No one knows yet, but the janitor carries a story inside him, a story that the piano is about to reveal. And the man who mocked him will soon realize how little he knows about the person he made. Fun of Part 1 ends with the hall slowly emptying, the janitor finishing his shift, and the piano sitting silently in the corner, waiting for the moment it will uncover a truth no one expected. Later in the afternoon, when the community center starts getting quieter, most of the music group has already left, and the sound of their chatter fades as the door closes behind them. Only a few people remain in the hall, two friends packing up their instruments, a young boy waiting for his parent, and the janitor who is finishing his cleanup. The air feels calmer now, and the sunlight coming from the large windows casts soft patterns on the wooden floor. The janitor moves slowly, as he always does, not because he is tired, but because he likes doing his work with care. He adjusts a stack of chairs, wipes dust from the stage steps, and checks the corners to see if anything needs fixing. The man who had mocked him earlier is still there, leaning against the table, strumming his guitar absent-mindedly. His loudness from earlier has faded. Maybe he is lost in his own thoughts, or maybe he is simply bored. After a few minutes of silent tuning, he suddenly looks toward the janitor again. There is still a hint of amusement in his eyes, but it's softer now, not as sharp as before. He says, half joking yet half curious, "You really don't want to give the piano a try? Come on, just 1 minute. I want to see if you can actually play anything." His tone is still playful, but not mocking like earlier. The janitor pauses and looks at him. For the first time today, he lets out a small sigh, the kind that feels like a memory pushing its way out. He walks toward a nearby table, sets down his cleaning cloth, and says quietly, "It's been a very long time." His voice is calm, almost gentle. But the man doesn't fully understand what he means. Instead, the man shrugs and says, "Long time or not, if you know something, show us. If not, it's fine. It's just music." The two friends in the room look up from their bags, curious again. They remember how the man had teased the janitor earlier, and part of them feels a little guilty for laughing. Now, they are wondering if the janitor might surprise them. The janitor turns his head slowly toward the piano sitting in the corner. It is not a fancy piano. It has scratches, faded paint, and a few keys that look worn out. Yet there is something warm about it, something familiar. The janitor begins walking toward it, but he moves with hesitation, as if each step brings back a memory he is not sure he wants to face. When he reaches the piano, he rests his hand on the wooden side, feeling the texture beneath his fingers. He takes a deep breath, the kind that comes when someone is standing between their past and their present. The man walks closer too, but he keeps some distance, unsure of what is happening. He playfully leans on a chair and says with a smile, "So you're finally thinking about it?" The janitor doesn't answer right away. Instead, he lifts the piano cover slowly, revealing the keys beneath it. Dust from the top scatters lightly into the air. He gently blows on the keys, brushing them with his fingertips. Like someone touching something precious after years, for a moment he just stands there, staring at the keys. The boy sitting on the bench nearby watches closely, eyes bright with curiosity. The friends whisper among themselves, wondering if this quiet man really knows how to play or if he is simply trying to be polite. Finally, the janitor speaks, but his voice is low. "There was a time when this was all I did," he says. The man raises his eyebrows. "All you did? You mean you were actually into music?" The janitor smiles faintly, a tired but honest smile. "A long time ago," he answers. The man chuckles softly, but not in a rude way. "Well then, let me hear something from a long time ago." He gestures toward the piano bench. The janitor looks at the bench for a few seconds before slowly taking a seat. His movements are careful, almost thoughtful, like someone returning to a place they once loved, but left behind for too long. When he sits, he lets his hands rest gently on his knees first. He doesn't touch the keys immediately. He just looks at them, letting memories flow quietly. The hall feels different now. It's as if the whole place is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The janitor finally lifts his hands and places them on the keys, but he doesn't press them yet. His fingers hover lightly above the surface. The man watches with a slight smirk, thinking the janitor might freeze and decide not to play. But then something changes in the janitor's expression. His eyes soften, not with sadness, but with a calm acceptance, like he is ready to reconnect with a part of himself he had locked away before he plays. He turns to the man and says softly, "I don't want to prove anything to anyone. Music, it's just something I used to love." The man nods, a bit awkward but genuinely interested now. "Then play because you love it," he says without teasing. This time, the janitor takes a deeper breath and gently presses a single key. A soft note fills the room. It is simple, but there is something emotional about it. He presses another key, then another, letting the sound guide him. His fingers move slowly at first, as if testing the piano, trying to understand how much it has changed over the years. The sound is imperfect, slightly off-tune in places, but warm. The man tilts his head, surprised. He wasn't expecting anything, maybe a random noise or a few broken attempts. But the notes, even though slow, are clean. They carry something: real experience, emotion, memory. The janitor stops for a moment, thinking. Then he begins again, this time letting his fingers follow a melody he once knew by heart. It is soft and simple, but it flows gently, filling the quiet hall. The boy listening opens his mouth slightly, surprised by the peaceful sound. The friends exchange glances, whispering, "He really can play." The man steps closer, carefully, as if he doesn't want to interrupt. His earlier attitude has completely faded. He no longer looks amused. He looks stunned. The janitor continues playing, his fingers moving more confidently now, remembering how it used to feel. Each note seems to pull him deeper into the moment, freeing him from the weight of the years. A sense of calm spreads through the room. Everyone feels it. Even the man who mocked him earlier stands frozen, unsure of what to say or how to react. This isn't just playing for fun. This is someone reconnecting with a part of himself he thought he had lost forever. After a minute, the janitor lifts his hands from the keys. The melody fades into the quiet hall. But he doesn't stand up. He sits still for a few seconds, breathing shallowly, as though he has just walked through a memory he didn't expect to face today. The man takes a step forward, lowering his guitar. He tries to speak, but the words get stuck. The janitor finally looks up at him. There is no anger in his eyes, no frustration, no pride, just a gentle stillness. The man clears his throat and says, You actually play like someone who studied this." His voice is not loud anymore. It's softer, almost shy. The janitor nods slowly and replies, "Music was a big part of my life. Life changed, and I had to leave it behind. The room falls silent again, not out of awkwardness, but out of respect. The boy sitting nearby claps softly, and the sound echoes a little, breaking the quiet moment. The janitor smiles at him, a warm and genuine smile. The man looks down at his guitar, then back at the janitor and says quietly, "I shouldn't have teased you earlier." His voice carries real regret now, not just politeness. But the janitor shakes his head gently. "It's okay," he says. "People say things without knowing. It happens." The man looks at the piano again, still shocked by what he just heard. "Play again?" he asks, but his tone is respectful this time, almost hopeful. The janitor doesn't answer right away. He just runs his fingers across the keys lightly, as if debating with himself, and as he sits there, with the hall bathed in golden afternoon light, everyone realizes something. The janitor isn't just a quiet man who cleans floors. He carries stories, memories, and talent that no one ever cared to ask about. And now, piece by piece, it is beginning to show. Part 2 ends with the janitor looking at the piano thoughtfully, the man watching in awe, and the quiet hall ready for the moment that will change everything. The janitor still sitting quietly at the piano. His hands rest softly on the keys, and for a moment it feels like time has slowed down around him. The sunlight from the windows has shifted, making long shadows stretch across the hall. The two friends, the young boy, and the man who had mocked him earlier all stand silently, waiting to see what he will do next. The janitor glances at the group. And for the first time today, he doesn't look unsure. Instead, there is a calmness in his eyes, a calmness that comes from finally letting something hidden breathe again. He turns back to the piano, gently presses a few more keys, and listens to the sound as if he is checking whether the instrument remembers him too. The man steps forward slowly, no longer smiling in a teasing way. His voice is softer when he says, "That was unexpected." The janitor doesn't react much. He simply gives a polite nod. The man rubs the back of his neck, looking embarrassed. "I mean, you played well. Really well." The janitor lifts his hands again, hesitating for only a second before he begins playing once more. But this time, the notes come more confidently. It's not just a simple tune anymore. There is depth in the melody, a slow rise and fall that feels like a story wrapped in sound. His fingers glide over the keys with ease, as if years have not passed since he last played. The room becomes completely still. Even the young boy doesn't move, afraid that the slightest sound might break the moment. The friends exchange surprised looks, unable to hide the disbelief on their faces. They were expecting something simple, but this is something else entirely. The man who mocked him earlier slowly sinks into a chair, unable to tear his eyes off the janitor's hands. Each note seems to hit him harder than the one before. It is as if he is watching something he never imagined possible, a quiet man he underestimated revealing a side of himself no one knew existed. The janitor continues playing, absorbed in the melody. His expression changes slightly. It starts to look like he is remembering something beautiful, something painful, maybe both. The music grows stronger, more emotional, and it fills the empty space in the hall, with a feeling none of them can quite describe. For the first time since the janitor began playing, the man whispers, How does someone like him end up working here?" He doesn't say it to insult him this time. It comes out as genuine confusion, mixed with guilt. One of the friends gently replies, "Sometimes life takes people in directions they don't expect." The janitor keeps playing. His shoulders lift and fall with the music, and his fingers move in a way that shows years of discipline and practice. This is not someone who learned casually. This is someone who once lived through music, breathed it, dreamed in it. As the melody continues, the hall almost feels transformed. The old piano doesn't sound old anymore. It sounds alive. It sounds like it has been waiting for someone who understands it. The janitor's music fills every corner, bouncing off the walls, echoing through the empty spaces, and settling quietly in the hearts of those listening. Finally, after several minutes, the janitor brings the melody to a slow, peaceful end. His hands rest once again on the keys, and he closes his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. When he opens them, he sees the group staring at him with wide eyes and open mouths. The man stands up quickly, almost knocking over the chair behind him. He walks closer to the janitor, his face filled with disbelief. You play like someone trained by a real teacher. Like someone who has been doing this for years. The janitor looks down at his hands. I started when I was little, he says softly. It used to be a big part of my life. His voice is steady, but there's a small sadness hidden inside it. The man sits on the bench beside him, unable to hide his shock. Why didn't you say anything earlier? Why didn't you tell anyone you can play like this? The janitor gives a small smile, but it isn't the happy kind. It's the kind of smile someone gives when they don't want to reopen old wounds. Because people usually don't ask, he replies calmly. And because some things are easier to keep quiet. The hall falls silent again as his words settle in the air. One of the friends speaks softly. You must have played for many years. The janitor nods. I practiced every day once. I used to spend hours learning pieces, learning how to express feelings through music. His eyes drift toward the window, as if he is remembering a different time, a different life. The man looks confused. Then why aren't you doing that now? Why are you working here instead? The janitor looks at the piano keys again, gently pressing one, letting the note fade slowly. Life changed, he says. There were responsibilities. Things I had to take care of. Music. It had to wait. The friends look at each other sadly, realizing that sometimes talent doesn't shine because life doesn't give people the chance. The man leans forward, elbows on his knees. You know, I feel terrible right now, he admits. I made fun of you without knowing anything about you. The janitor shakes his head softly. It happens, he says. People see a uniform, a broom, a cleaning cart, and they think that's all there is. But everyone has a story. His words feel heavy, but true. The boy, who has been quietly watching all this time, finally speaks. I didn't know someone who works like you could play like that. His voice is innocent and honest. The janitor smiles at him warmly. Talent doesn't choose a job, he says gently. People can have many sides. We just don't always see them. The man looks down, ashamed. You taught me something today, he says quietly. Not just about music, but about respect. The janitor turns slightly, looking at him with a calm expression. I never wanted to teach anything, he replies. I just love music. The man takes a deep breath, his voice thick with emotion. You know, when you first played those notes, I felt something I haven't felt in a long time. It wasn't just music, it was real. The janitor looks touched but doesn't say anything. He simply listens. After a long silence, the man asks, Can you play one more? Just one. There is no teasing in his voice, now only admiration. The janitor hesitates for a moment. He touches the keys lightly and closes his eyes. His breathing becomes steady, like he's preparing himself. Then he begins again, this time choosing a melody that feels more alive, more hopeful. It starts soft but grows brighter with every line. The man watches, eyes wide again, as though witnessing something magical. The friends stand still, barely blinking, afraid to miss even a second of the moment. The boy's face glows with excitement, his legs swinging gently under the bench. The melody fills the hall, rising higher, then falling calmly, then rising again. It feels like sunlight melting through clouds. It feels like someone who was lost finding their way back home. It feels like a voice saying, I am still here. By the time the janitor lifts his hands, the hall is filled with a silence so deep it feels like the music is still floating in the air. The man doesn't speak right away. His eyes are a little watery, though he tries to hide it. Finally, he whispers, That was beautiful. The janitor gives a small nod. Thank you, he says softly. The man stands up slowly, almost reverently, and whispers, I never knew someone could hide so much talent inside. I judged you without knowing anything. The janitor smiles gently. It's okay, he says again. Everyone makes mistakes. But the man shakes his head. This time I made a big one. The janitor gently closes the piano lid. As he stands, the man steps aside, giving him space. Now, treating him with the respect he should have shown from the beginning, part 3 ends, with the janitor walking away from the piano. The entire hall filled with stunned silence, and the man standing frozen in complete shock, realizing he had underestimated someone who carried more talent than he could have ever imagined. The hall still silent, the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty but full of surprise, full of emotion, full of respect that was never there before. The janitor steps back from the piano, his hands hanging loosely by his sides, as if the music he just played is still flowing through him. He doesn't smile widely, doesn't show any dramatic expression. He is calm, gentle, and peaceful, as if he has finally allowed a hidden part of himself to breathe. The man who mocked him earlier stands frozen. His guitar rests beside him, forgotten on a chair. His mouth is slightly open, but no words come out. For someone who always had something to say, jokes, comments, complaints, he suddenly looks like he cannot speak at all. The two friends stand behind him, equally shocked. They whisper to each other, but even their whispers seem quiet, as if the hall itself is telling everyone to respect the moment. The young boy sits on the bench with wide eyes, swinging his feet slowly, still trying to understand how the janitor, someone he saw sweeping floors every day, could play music that felt like it touched his heart. The janitor begins to walk back toward his cleaning cart, ready to finish the last bit of his work for the day. But before he can move too far, the man quickly steps forward and says, "Wait, please." His voice cracks slightly, something no one expects from him. The janitor stops and turns around. His expression is calm, patient, and kind. He doesn't seem disturbed. He doesn't seem proud. He just stands quietly, waiting for the man to speak. The man takes a deep breath and says softly, I owe you an apology." His voice is not loud anymore. It doesn't carry that usual confidence he liked to show. Instead, it carries honesty. The janitor gently shakes his head. "You don't need to apologize," he says with a small smile. "It's all right." But the man insists. "No, it's not all right. I made fun of you without knowing anything. I thought you were just someone who cleans the floors. I didn't think about who you might be or what you might be capable of." The janitor's smile remains gentle as he replies, "People judge quickly. It's part of life. I'm used to it." The man's eyes drop to the floor. "You shouldn't be used to it," he says quietly. "You deserve respect. You deserve appreciation." The janitor looks at him thoughtfully. "Everyone deserves respect," he answers. "Not just me." The boy watching speaks up suddenly, his voice full of innocence. "You played like someone from a big stage," he says softly. "Like someone who plays in front of many people." The janitor kneels a little so he can look at the boy directly. "Thank you," he says gently. "That means a lot." The friends step closer too. One of them asks carefully, "Did you ever play anywhere? Like, on a stage or in a group?" The janitor pauses for a moment before answering. "A long time ago," he says, "I used to play in small events. I was learning, practicing every day, dreaming of doing something with music." The man lifts his head. "What happened?" he asks softly. The janitor looks at the floor for a second, not in sadness but in quiet memory. "Life," he replies. "Life happened. Responsibilities came. I had to work. I had to earn. Music didn't leave my heart, but I couldn't give it time anymore." There's no anger in his voice, no bitterness, just acceptance. A soft acceptance of a life that took him down a different path. The man swallows hard. "You should still play," he says. "You shouldn't hide this talent." The janitor shakes his head gently. "I wasn't hiding," he says. "I just didn't think it mattered anymore." The hall feels heavy with emotion again, not sad emotion, but warm, human emotion. Everyone realizes in their own way that the janitor isn't just someone who cleans the building. He is someone who carries a story, one that could inspire anyone who hears it. The man walks closer slowly, respectfully, and says, "If you ever want to play again, if you ever want someone to listen, I will be there. I want to hear more." The janitor smiles. Thank you, he says, but the man continues. No, really. You taught me something huge today. You showed me that I was wrong, completely wrong. I should have never judged you. I should have never joked like that. The janitor takes a breath and replies softly, It's okay. What matters is what you understand now. The friends nod in agreement. One of them says, Honestly, I think everyone here learned something. We never even thought about your life. We just saw you working and assumed that was all. The janitor doesn't get offended. Instead, he gives the same gentle smile he has been giving all day. Everyone is more than what they appear to be, he says. Everyone has something inside them that others don't see. The boy stands up from the bench and walks closer. Will you play again someday? He asks shyly. The janitor looks at him kindly. Maybe, he says. Music never really leaves you? Sometimes it just waits. The man, still standing close, takes a deep breath and admits something even deeper. You know, when you started playing earlier, I felt embarrassed, because I realized that I laughed at someone who could do something I can't even dream of doing. The janitor responds softly, It's not about who is better. It's about what we love. The man nods, but it's clear he is still processing the weight of the moment. A few minutes pass silently as everyone breathes in the emotion of what just happened. The janitor begins rolling his cleaning cart toward the storage room, but before he goes, he turns back for a moment. Thank you for listening, he says. It felt good to play again. The man smiles, genuinely this time, without ego, without teasing. Thank you for playing, he replies. You made this day unforgettable. The young boy waves excitedly. The friends smile warmly, and the janitor walks toward the hallway with a lightness in his step that wasn't there before. As he leaves the hall, the man sits down near the piano, looking at it differently now. He touches the keys, not to play but to feel the same instrument that held so much emotion moments earlier. He whispers to himself, I judged him so quickly, and he turned out to be a master. The friends come beside him. One of them says quietly, This is why we should never judge people based on what they do for a living. The other adds, Everyone has a story. And we rarely know anything about it. The man nods. I won't forget this, he says. Meanwhile, the janitor finishes his work in the hallway. As he puts away his mop and cloth, he feels something in his chest, a warm feeling he hasn't felt in years. He doesn't think of applause. He doesn't think of praise. He just feels alive again, like a part of him that had been sleeping finally woke up. When he steps outside the community center, the evening breeze touches his face gently. He looks up at the sky, which is turning orange as the sun sets. For the first time in a long time, he feels proud, not in a loud way, but in a quiet, personal way. He realizes that even though life changed and responsibilities took over, his love for music never disappeared. It stayed inside him, waiting patiently, waiting for the right moment to come out again. And today, it finally did. Back inside, the man stays near the piano, still thinking about everything he witnessed. The hall feels different now, warmer, fuller, as if the music had changed the air itself. He knows he will never forget what he saw today. And he knows he will never again judge someone by their uniform, their job, or their silence. The janitor walks home slowly, feeling peaceful. He doesn't think about the man's apology or the shock on everyone's faces. He thinks about the music, about the soft notes, about how good it felt to let his fingers dance again. He smiles gently to himself, knowing that sometimes the most unexpected moments reveal who we truly are, and sometimes the quietest people carry the loudest stories.